With a roll call of members, we have Steve Whitman, Jack Scarborough, Bonnie Sears, Bridget Powers, myself, Rebecca Hansen, John Randlett, Chris Buckley, and Brian Murphy. I'm always going to forget somebody's name for some strange reason. And Marianne Barnsley is absent today. She is excused. Since there's 6 full-time or full members, Steve would like to invite you to participate as a full member this evening. We will begin, or then continue on with a review of the minutes from our last meeting on November 15th. I have 4 edits, so if everyone's okay if I just jump right in. The first is the spelling of my last name in the roll call. The next is in the site plan approval, the bullet point that begins with, the 4th bullet point begins with Mr. Will Davis in bold, and then the sub-bullet point, the second one down, it reads, "The project requires an alternation of terrain." Next is on the top of the second page, the bullet point that begins, "The chair presented," and then the second bullet point under that, it's, chair announced that even one affirmative criterion is indicative of a possible regional impact requiring a butter notification. I would suggest we strike the word abutter from that because it's not a butter notification, unless we want to say abutting towns, but I think if we just remove abutter.
That should read requires as well.
There we go. And then in the first bullet point on the top of the 3rd page, the second sentence, it reads, "He also announced that Green Snow Pro certified treatments will be used in the parking lot during winter, reducing the amount of salt and sand needed, or sand and salt needed." I don't think it requires the amount needed, it changes the amount used.
I have another, Madam Chair. First page, second bullet point from the bottom, from the alternation of terrain. The last sentence, the behind the store compensation basin, not tanks.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other edits?
On page 2, under the bullet point the chair presented, the 1, 2, 3, 4th sub bullet point below that, Mr. Buckley questioned whether the regional impact would even be considered if this was the Irving station, referencing the difference in square footage. Was there an answer to that question? Because I think that would be the more important thing to put in here.
I think it was a rhetorical question.
I think I got an answer. I think yeah, and I think that was the point was, that I was trying to make was, I was looking for clarification. So I don't know if we could go back through the minutes and see if I got an answer to that.
Okay, I'll do that.
So you want to go back to the tape?
To the tape, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we think that that's an important enough piece of the minutes to not approve them this evening?
Well, we could approve them provisionally, and if there was further clarification to that question,
Okay.
it could just be included.
All right, I would not recommend approving them conditionally, but I don't know, what does everyone else think?
Chris, you're thinking to have a record of it as part of the decision-making for why?
I don't think the question was that important. I think the answer to that question was a little more important, but it's not. I don't feel slighted by not getting my answer. I thought someone did answer that.
Right.
And I thought the answer was the Irving station would not.
Right.
I think the answer to the question is the Irving station would not, because we did not say that it would when we were considering that application, so.
Not that long ago.
Yeah. So.
Which might be something the public would be interested in, but.
It wasn't a turning point in the decision to send the letter either. I don't think. There were only 2. It's up to you.
Okay, I'll leave it up to everyone else. I don't care.
We can.
If it speeds things up.
I just want to make sure that we're not going back, and we got to figure out who would actually go back to watch that to correct it, because it is a burden on staff time or board time.
I'd be happy to get the information for the next meeting.
So let's go through a few more edits, and then if we vote to approve them, then I think the board will, that works for everyone. So, other edits? I don't have any comments on the meeting minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve these minutes?
I will make a motion to approve these minutes.
Second.
Okay. And if we vote,
Point of order. Well, it's funny because Bonnie was on and
Oh,
off.
yeah.
So I think it would be cleaner if somebody else made the
right.
motion as well.
I'll make a
I
motion.
take that back.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Very good. Would anyone else like to join in the motion making for?
I'm gonna
Okay,
abstain.
yeah. All right.
It's not here.
Okay. So if we vote yes, then we will approve the minutes as amended. If we decide that we want to go back to look at the record or listen to the record to clear up the point that Chris brought up, then you would vote no. Does that make sense?
Can we just have Brian update it and just bring them forward to the next meeting? It's only on the 20th.
Okay, do that so we can update the record and then approve. Okay.
Would that be all right? Because then Chris's answer could be incorporated and
Okay.
it's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
To table the minutes at this point.
Yeah, just give you a chance to make those changes and then we can just approve them at the next meeting.
That's great. Thank you.
I mean, they'll be available as draft minutes for anyone until then.
Okay, so we'll hold
I
on to these.
retract my motion.
There'll be additional opportunity, I'm sure.
You're just getting warmed up.
Need a vote?
Oh, to vote to table them.
Yes.
Okay.
See?
See, now someone could make a motion to table the minutes until our next
Make a
meeting.
motion to table the minutes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Anyone opposed? All right. We will table these minutes for our next meeting. Thank you. If it's okay with everyone, does it make sense to move the continuation of the public hearing number 6 to the next slot?
Absolutely.
Just so I think a number of people are here this evening, so they don't have to sit through everything else. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are doing number 6 on the agenda, unfinished business, continuation of Market Basket site plan review hearing from our last meeting, November 15th, 2018. Bonnie is recusing herself from this conversation because she is in a butter. Recusing herself as a board member. Any board discussion before we bring up the applicant to discuss any relevant updates to, I think what we've seen is some of the applications come before us, or the engineering reports that have gone back and forth a little bit. Any board discussion?
Point of order. We did get 2 responses to our DRI letter. Would it be
Okay.
proper to bring them up now or wait to open the public hearing?
Let's, I think if we just bring them, yeah, maybe at the, right before the public hearing, does that
Okay.
work? Okay. Any questions or comments from the board about, or not really totally sure what the next steps would be, but, does anyone want any comments or questions from the board before we?
I would just, I mean, Brian was able to send us attachments today, and that wasn't a lot of time. I mean, you didn't have much time to get
No.
them to us, and we didn't have
all
time to
late-breaking
really
news.
review, and some of it didn't really change that much. Having the KB Partners letter printed out here was helpful.
Yes, that came in the latest of all of them.
Right, and I saw you forwarded it to us.
Yes.
And there are some things there we can talk about that they think should be conditions,
Yeah.
if we get to that point, but, so, yeah, it's hard to, when everyone's busy working and doing other stuff, to have time to read through all those attachments day of. So, just wanted to note, people think that we have all this stuff way ahead of time. We don't, it's just
Right.
the timeline in order to be here tonight,
Correct.
so.
Okay.
I spared you the AOT application.
Oh, you sent it.
Oh, you got that.
22 megabytes.
Right.
Rebecca couldn't get it. But
No, nor did Jack, nor Bill.
I think it's great you sent it.
Okay. Do we want to discuss some of these points here? Does everyone get a chance to look at the response from the town engineer?
I think we should take his advice.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why we have the engineer review the
Yep.
stuff. And it seems like we'll give the applicant a chance to respond to it. Hopefully, Will had a copy of it. Did you guys? Do you have an extra copy of the letter?
Yes.
It's not that long, but it seems like mostly recommendations related to future activity that may be involving NHDOT for the intersections, or a condition of approval for the floodplain mitigation, just to make sure that all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed.
I think that's the point number one, that the financial guarantee to be required for improvements to the Highland Street intersection. And it's likely that those recommendations wouldn't come forward until after Market Basket is already open and operating, so.
Should we discuss each of them, give Mike and Will a chance to hear them and
Yeah, I just want to make sure Will has a chance to
read it?
read them over. I think some of us are reading them now as well.
And it sounds like more stuff might be coming from KV Partners also. Is that not the understanding here? Like he was rushed, this is a rush letter, and we might even be,
It sounds to me like they're minor technical issues. I mean, I'm reading right
Item
from
number
this.
4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that can be easily resolved directly with the engineer.
Yep.
I'm more comfortable with a list of 4 things to be added on at this point than the list we were looking at 3 weeks ago, so.
Right.
Okay.
You're fast.
No, that's fine. I mean, we're all dealing with seeing this pretty fresh, so. Do you want to address any of these, or anything else that, I just want to give you the opportunity to present any changes that maybe have been made since 3 weeks ago, if you were able to incorporate all the comments from the town engineer from the last meeting into the application and the plans.
Right, yeah, and we were, and I spoke with Mike Vignali this afternoon, and he indicated that everything was addressed to his satisfaction with, except for what, the things that he was gonna put in this letter. So there's a revised plan set, which I have. I mean, there's not any substantive changes other than the drainage has been finalized and a lot more detail provided, because it's basically the AOT application design that we have. I mean, the comments that Mike has here, I think Mr. McGinley actually has a bond for the DOT work already, because he was required to do that as part of the Irving project. So all the work that's going to be done on Tenny Mountain Highway, well, that we anticipate will be required by DOT, we haven't received that approval yet, is already bonded. So the financial guarantee that Vignali is discussing, I think we already have that one covered, and we can provide that. The as-built, that was something that we noted in our letter to Mike, that we would provide an as-built of the flood comp area and the pad once it's all complete. And so we can certainly do that, and that'll basically show the final grades of everything. And then number 3, he's talking about the geotechnical report, which shows the details of what's happening with the reinforced slope around the perimeter of the site. And we provided that as an attachment to him. He's just suggesting that we reference that in our plans, which we will do. We had referenced a design by S.W. Cole, but we didn't reference the specific report. And then he also just notes that he, as he said to me this afternoon, that we should be able to work out any minor technical issues on the drainage that he may have. He'll be completing a detailed review of it concurrently with DES. So he just said he wants to review it on behalf of the town, which he usually does, but he didn't have the time to go through it all. It's kind of a lot. But in his initial look through it, he said everything looked pretty good. He just wants to get through all the details of it, and he was confident that he and I could sort through any issues that he might have on that. So that could be a condition of approval if the board's prepared to do that. And I guess, I wasn't anticipating walking through the plans again. If you have any specific questions you'd like me to cover or anything you'd like to see on the plans, I'd be happy to go over that.
Any questions from the board? Okay, so I want to get ready to open it up for a public hearing. Thank you.
Sure.
And I don't think we anticipated getting walked through the plans again either. So there might be some new people in the crowd though that want to see some of that stuff. So we'll just be ready in case someone asks. But just a reminder that we did vote last meeting that we determined that this project is a possible regional or a development of regional impact. So we sent out notices to towns, abutting towns in the Lakes Region Planning Commission. I believe Brian has gotten one letter?
Actually, two. Madam
Two
Chair.
letters.
I can give you the list of the towns that we sent. They were all direct abutters. That would be Ashland, Bridgewater, Campton, Groton, Hebron, Holderness, and Rumney. They're all physically abutting to this, plus the minutes in a plan set went to LRPC. We had two responses. One came in today from the town of Warren. And this was...
That wasn't on the list.
Dear Chairwoman Hanson and Plymouth Planning Board, and he spelled your name correctly.
That's good.
Please be advised that the Warren Board of Selectmen has carefully and thoroughly considered the proposed retail development of Market Basket in the town of Plymouth. We are well aware that residents of Warren consider Plymouth to be well within the catchment area for retail service and look forward to having alternative shopping experience of the quality that Market Basket has proven to bring to the grocery industry. If we need further information, the town administrator left his number in case we want to call. Also, we received a fax from the town of Campton Planning Board. This is town of Plymouth, and it was directed to me, actually, the planning board. RE construction of Market Basket at Riverside Landing Plaza. The Campton Planning Board is in favor, bold and underlined, of the construction of Market Basket at Riverside Landing Plaza, and those were the only two letters that we had received.
So before I open up to the public hearing, I just want to ask people, since we have noticed other towns, that people definitely state which town they are coming from. And if any individuals that want to speak are representing planning board or select board, that we need to know if they are speaking on behalf of the board they're representing, that they do have a vote that is supporting them this evening. All right. With that, I'm going to take the sparkly gavel and open up the public hearing at 6:47 and invite anybody to come up to the podium.
My name is Karen Freitas. I live in the town of Plymouth. I'm also your town clerk. I just wanted to touch briefly about the regional impact or question, and just wanted to a little brief history about Plymouth. Plymouth has been, for many, many years, as early as the late 1800s, has been a regional source for people, starting with people coming from Boston to go ski in the mountains. Plymouth was the stopping point. They would stay here at some of the beautiful hotels we used to have, and then move on. Plymouth also, over the past many years, has become a regional hub for many nonprofit organizations. services that are greatly needed in this area. And we've had a proud history of providing those services. Along with that, it also has had an impact on us. And I don't know if everyone is aware, but a little better than 50% of our property in town is non-taxable. And so, at this point in time, we're looking for another way to help ourselves. We've come to a point in the town where our tax base is getting strained, and we have been looking for economic development to help us relieve that stress on our property tax base. So I would just like to say, I'm glad we're regional and we do what we do, but I think it's time we take a step, bring in economic development, and help the less than, well, the 50% that are taking care of 100% of the town's tax base. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Miller, Senator Plymouth. I believe that, I recall in February of this year, the town voted to acknowledge and accept Article 7 New Hampshire Constitution. That we stated that we're a free, sovereign, and independent town within the state of New Hampshire, having sole and exclusive right to self-governance. With respect to regional impact, one of our benchmarks should look and see what specific financial impact a development would have on town government agencies like the highway department, police, fire, a physical costing as a result of that application business coming to town of Plymouth. Because if there's no impact to our own budget, in other words, all of those elements that we use to evaluate this are mitigated, then it appears that the impact to other towns would be severely limited. But given that there are other elements that were part of this request for an impact study, and it sounds like we haven't received all of that response. I just say that the process of what we're going through should stay, like with our site plan review process, we want to make sure that all the permits and licenses and certificates are obviously in hand and are approved before we approve the system, change this application. But I think we very determinedly try to get businesses to come to Plymouth and try to get our business client up, and we are the regional attraction. And so I can appreciate the process, but I would also like to say that if we recall our vote in February, we do have the right to self-determination and self-governance. Thank you.
For the purposes of these notifications, the window is closed as of the opening of the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Jim Martin from Rumney, New Hampshire. I just wanted to go on what the last gentleman mentioned about the impact, as we're talking about, of the services and all that stuff. Well, you're going to have all these additional tax dollars, all this extra money coming in to Plymouth, having a market basket. They're going to be paying taxes, which will pay the fire, which will pay the police, which will pay into DOT. I think any other, like I said, I used to work as a field rep. I talked last time. So I serviced a lot of stores around, And I saw Home Depots go in, Market Baskets, Lowe's, Walmart, whatever. The bigger box stores. Yeah, there was some impact to the traffic. Yes, we have plenty of light systems where we're at, so we don't really have to add a lot more, I don't think, my opinion. Just having the extra income for the taxes and extra jobs for the people in the area that I think Market Basket is very good with the people. Look how they followed. You know, the founder. They're good people. I think that they're going to bring a great thing to this neighborhood in Plymouth. Like I said, I'm from Rumney. I'm going to be there. This opens, I know I'm going to be there. I don't like going down to Tilton, but I do. Because of the experience when you walk in the door, you feel welcome. Cashier speaks to you. The bagger speaks to you. You walk into Hannaford's, and I'm sorry if anybody likes Hannaford's, but I don't. You're lucky if the cashier even looks at you. I think this is the type of a business to bring that good feeling of retail. I've worked in retail all my life. I know what it's like being on the other side and on this side. I think it's going to be a great thing for this town. Yeah, we want to get everything right, but it's been going on for a while, and I think they're good people. They're going to do what's right. My opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Oh,
I'm sorry. Could we just get maybe a show of hands, just the people like you that do support the Market Basket? Just to see in the room what everybody's thinking.
I'm not sure that I don't think that's something that I want to entertain. I think that, I think I want to make the board decision, within the board, so.
I'm just curious who's in the room, if they're really truly interested. I know my neighbors don't ask me to come tonight and speak, and I didn't mention on their behalf. They have a lot of young children, so they couldn't come out, but, and I can tell you just through my office, there's so many people that are just so looking forward to something coming through, and they're really excited about this project.
And I do think that has come through in the comments that we've gotten. I don't know if a show of hands is going to be a representation of what we're looking for this evening. Is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Any other question or comments from the public before I close the public hearing? All right, it is 6:58, closing the public hearing. I'd like to bring it back to the board with any additional questions to the applicant or discussion.
I mean, I think I'd like to say a couple things based on the comments that we heard tonight, and I think for those that are watching at home, the planning board process can be a confusing process, and we're all stating facts about a development that's been evolving for some time, but we've had this application just since last month. And we're still getting feedback from the town engineer today. So the decision to follow the state legislation about regional impact didn't delay this, in my opinion. And if we didn't do it, and one of the towns had objected, and there was a lawsuit, I don't think people would be coming to the planning board very happy with us if we were expending town tax dollars for that. So the process that we're following, regardless of whether any of us particularly like or don't like a land use, we can't let that sway us. We have to treat every applicant the same. But I hope people realize that this was a process that the planning board went through. We didn't all agree, but there was a majority vote, and we're still sorting out details on the application, and there's not many left.
I'd like to add that we did, I think, do our best to make this as quick quick process too, because this is actually not, this is our work session, this is not a public meeting, so we agreed to hold another public hearing on this date. So we wouldn't be potentially holding this up longer than necessary. Our intention is not to delay, but to make sure that we're doing our best job at representing the town, so.
So we're meeting 2 weeks early, right?
Yeah, so.
As far as these comments, should we go through?
Yeah, let's go through these, I think that's great.
I mean, we'll address them, so.
So yeah, the first one, this is the financial guarantee required for improvements to the Highland Street intersections. Will, you mentioned the Irving intersection. I'm not sure if that's different than the Highland Street, so.
Right, and we can provide more information on the DOT bonding, but it was as part of the Irving project, my understanding is that Mike was required to bond what DOT was envisioning as the full build out for this section of highway, which included some modifications to Highland Street, minor changes to the medians and some striping, and then the signal at Market Basket and some work on the turn lanes there as well. So the bond covered the whole thing, even though the Irving driveway really only is basically just the driveway.
So we think we need some sort of documentation as a condition, that we need documentation of that bond for the DOT? Okay,
Perfect.
check. Awesome, all right.
You want to see it? I'll take that.
I mean, I can look at it, but
Could it be a condition that if Mike reviews it and it satisfies what he was looking for, it's fine. But if it doesn't, that it be addressed?
okay. So, I can take notes on conditions. So we need a condition that the DOT bond meets the approval of the town engineer. Does that work for the board?
Yeah.
Before I write it down in pen? All right. I'm not sure, I probably shouldn't be the one to keep that. So the next one was applicant's engineer agreed to provide as-built of the site pad and floodplain compensation area after construction is complete to ensure floodplain mitigation provides the full amount required. So I mean, that can be a condition.
Yeah, he says condition of approval or shown as a requirement on the plan.
All right.
There was another condition of approval in the previous paragraph, though.
Oh.
The third sentence from the bottom.
Yep.
He said, also, it must be clear, perhaps in the condition of approval, that the decision on what future off-site improvements are required will be up to both New Hampshire DOT and the town. And by the town, John, I'm assuming he means the select board, right?
It would have to, yes.
So it would be DOT and the select board. Any future things would go between you guys. Wouldn't have to come back to the planning board.
Certainly would be reported back.
How can we have that as a condition of approval on the site plan review, if it's where we want DOT and the select board to get together to figure this out?
Oh, you want to be that specific, you're
Well,
saying?
no, but it says between NH, I guess I'm having trouble how we are going to put it on the applicant to ensure that the town talks to DOT. You see what I'm saying?
I think DOT is going to make sure the town has a voice. I don't think that would be on the applicant.
Okay.
Well, I think, looking at this, the DOT here, he has the bond for, it's going to be a condition that have the bond for any modifications that need to be made. So I would think that would, I don't know, Brian, as far as the town goes, how would you see that?
Well, it clearly lies in the select board's lap, because they control traffic
Right.
you know, and the funds.
But again, we would defer to the DOT
Correct.
for their
Yeah, the DOT is going to
clarification
tell us what they
and their
want.
requirements. So I think,
You get it right to, the select board to have a chance to review any improvements that were made, as opposed to trying to say what those would be now, when nobody
Yeah.
knows, they may be
Right,
none.
and that's
No way
the
to
nature
tell,
of
and
it. We
again-
don't know what they're going to come up with.
and again, that's one of the reasons for the bond. If DOT has changes in their cost implications, then it would be covered under that. So I think that,
I just think it's, if we're asking DOT to do something, I feel like the site plan review is essentially an agreement between the town and the applicant, and trying to put something that requires DOT to do something in the site plan approval, I just feel like we're asking the applicant to tell DOT to talk to us.
How about this? What if the condition or in addition to the bond, was any future off-site improvements required by DOT?
yeah.
Because it would be DOT approaching the applicant, I'm sure, or approaching the town and saying, we need a change here, we need to modify a lane or something.
Yep.
It's good.
So any future modifications.
Required.
And as John said, that's why the bond is there, in case that happens.
Exactly.
DOT, involve the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Town with a capital T, okay. Okay. So going back to number 2, I have it written down as one of our conditions, I think. So I think just maybe getting our list of conditions and see how weighty a list of conditions it is. I don't like to, I think in general, putting a ton of conditions on an approval is not always the best way to go. If we're putting too many conditions on, I think it just means the plans aren't ready to go. So I just want to keep coming up with a list, and then we can go from there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. The reference of the geotechnical support submitted, that seems to be a pretty easy change to the plans. Do we think that needs to be a condition?
I don't think so.
Mr. Davis also said he would put it on there
Yep.
in future plans.
And that any, the drainage calculations, that the town engineer has final approval on drainage calculations. Does that make sense to say it that way?
He said after an initial review, we believe any future comments will be minor technical issues.
I just want to make sure we're doing this officially with each of the conditions. It's not that I don't trust individuals to be doing the things that they're saying they're going to do. I just think it's better if we actually have it written down, established within an approval, if that's what happens. Okay. So the 3 conditions we have based on the engineer's report are, any future modifications required by DOT involve the town. I wrote down a terrible one, this doesn't make sense. DOT meets approval of the town engineer, that doesn't make any sense. That's for to address number 2. Did you write down an approval for that, or a condition for that one, Brian?
No, I mean, it just, that as-built would be a condition of approval.
Okay, all right.
I mean, that's kind of boilerplate-ish things with engineers and planning boards.
All right. So if there's no comments from the board, no questions, maybe there's a motion? Oh, yeah.
I just have one question or clarification, I guess, on the town's concurrence with the DOT approval. I'm just not sure exactly how that's not, I guess the town doesn't typically review work on the state highway within the state right of way.
DOT, you didn't say town, did you?
Well, Vignali did say in his letter, he says.
Yeah, this said town, but I thought we reviewed it and we just said whatever DOT
Yeah,
requirement.
the sense that I got from the discussion was that the decision on what future off-site improvements required by DOT involved the town and its governing body.
It doesn't seem uncommon that the DOT would show what you had agreed to, so that the town select board or staff could approve it.
Right, and I guess if DOT does that regularly, that's fine. I just wasn't sure if we were gonna be required to do something, I don't know. Just wouldn't be clear if we're supposed to come before the select board or something to review the plans. It's not a normal step, so.
Okay. I mean, my thoughts are if DOT has additional requirements, they'll contact you and they'll also let the town know and,
Right, well, I guess what I mean, the approval here should be conditioned upon the DOT approval for the driveway permit, I would think.
Mhm.
And then, as part of that process, presumably they will confer with the town, I guess.
It sounds like Mike is saying they want to let you have a chance to build the facility and operate, and then they'll do an evaluation. If they see there's a need for off-site improvements, that there not be a requirement to have you build additional off-site improvements if there's not such a need.
Correct, yeah.
So I think it's just about making sure that if they do approach you, that they check with the town so that the select board and the town staff know what's going on, so it doesn't fly in face of maybe something else that's being, seems like just communication.
Is Highland Street town, or it's town, right?
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that would be to me, is an obvious reason why we need to make sure that because of major town road is intersecting with the state highway, that,
Yeah, and I think that DOT will coordinate with the select board
Yeah.
anyway, I guess there's.
Yeah,
I think-
and we didn't have any problems with anything else that went in over there, the bank or McDonald's or liquor store or the hotel, so,
I think
or
Mike's,
CVS when it went in, so.
yeah, Mike's sense, at least from what I read here, is that he just wanted to make sure that DOT didn't proceed alone on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
good, okay.
Good, thank you.
All right,
Make a motion, we approve the site plans with the amendments.
Second.
okay. So the motion on the table is to approve this site plan review application with the conditions that we've just outlined. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The site application is approved.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for hanging in, Mike.
When can I go shop?
Hopefully in the spring.
In the spring.
Sorry about those 3 weeks. Said, gonna open in the spring then.
You're back.
Thanks for hearing us during the work session.
No problem.
Thank you, Will.
Everyone's leaving but Frank.
Yeah.
I think that was really nice that you bumped them up on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
That was a
Oh,
good
yeah,
call.
definitely.
Yeah, good call.
Having sat through a lot of meetings as like a special guest,
Yeah.
where they make me sit there for like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's tough,
Get the paying customers out of the way first.
Yeah.
especially with the meaty subjects that are always discussed.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Treasury report.
Yep. Still think I could say it. Woo! Okay, I'm glad it's over.
And as a citizen, I want to thank you all
You're welcome.
I couldn't vote.
We thank the whole planning board.
Sorry,
We
Bonnie,
did our
the public
job
hearing
and-
was closed.
Yep.
But no, I'm speaking to you now as a board member, so there.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That was, it's the toughest, I mean, it wasn't that hard. It just, I feel like we were getting a lot of, from the audience. So thank you, everyone, for, you got through it. So, yay, I'm glad.
It was a very clean process.
Good.
Okay.
Number 4.
Remember how my mind totally melted down last meeting? I'm afraid that's gonna, it was.
It's happening
yeah.
earlier tonight.
It happened before I even got here tonight, I'm sorry. Number 4, administrative matters, presentation of completed special use permit, ADU, for board signature.
Okay, I received the second request for an ADU. There's only been 2 since the legislation went through. I checked through the entire thing. There is a minor building permit that's involved. It's already in process. Basically, I have some calcs here. I didn't print up everything for you guys because it's really not that kind of a case. It's mostly just informative. But this is on Bailey Avenue, single-family home. They're converting a rear space to a, I want to get the square footage here. 815.41 square feet, and it's 1,000 square foot max. So it's under that. It will require, well, the fire department is reviewing it now for means of egress, but it does have exit to grade. They have also brought the parking up to the 2-family requirement, which is part of what we do here. So that would essentially put in 4 for that home instead of the unlimited. I mean, they're set in that now, whereas in a single-family home, you know, if you have legal cars, you can park as many as you want, you know, as a homeowner. We don't restrict that. So to my mind, this is imminently approvable. Any questions?
The definition of a rear space.
Pardon me?
Did you say a rear space?
Well, it's towards the back of the property. The house had some additions on the back that were easily converted to this without it affecting the front portion of it. And it will be owner occupied.
Sounds good.
Did that answer your question? Okay. So I don't even know if this requires a vote or just a nod or, I mean, because it's a weird thing, the way we set it up.
I don't even,
It was mostly for notification.
Shouldn't use nods. Somebody could be sleeping, right?
I think a vote would be in order.
yeah, so maybe we could just pass it around and
Sure, if you want
take
to
a,
look at it.
yeah.
It's the whole
I think it would
thing.
just be helpful for us to refresh what it looks like
Sure.
anyway.
Do you need to look at this?
And it won't affect the appearance from the street of the house, other than the fact that the parking is improved, would be the only indication that there's a change.
On what? On what?
From the street view of the house,
Oh, okay.
which goes to that whole rear development thing we were talking about.
It's our builder doing it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So you got to recuse yourself, is that what you're saying?
He's not my builder yet.
Ah. He's a good one.
Yeah, I know.
The setup that it needs just board review, but not, I think what we decided was board review.
Okay.
I think it was more just for us to see what's coming forward.
yes.
So we could make amendments as necessary, is what I remember us doing. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, there was nothing that was even questionable on this one. It's undersized.
Yep.
You see the checklist on the front. Those are all my check marks.
Yep.
I have, and most of those documents are included in that.
So I think, I mean, we can take a vote just to, because we're signing something, and I
Yeah,
feel better.
that's what I think.
Yeah. I don't really like signing things unless we've taken a vote.
Yes.
Great.
You want a motion now?
Yeah, we could make a motion.
Do you guys want a chance to see it before?
I don't feel any more enlightened if it helps you by having looking at it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I would make a motion that we approve the special use permit for the ADU on Bailey Road?
Avenue.
Bailey Avenue.
Second.
I think Jack got the second first.
Sneaky.
Let me turn my hearing.
All right, do you guys want to take a look before we vote?
Oh, I thought we just voted.
Oh, no.
No,
Yeah.
the motion's
Just
on
made
the
the
Motion's on the
motion.
table.
Made the
Okay,
motion.
Yeah.
just wake me up.
That's why we don't, yeah.
Interim, the board had asked me to tighten up the language on two of the amendments that we had discussed, which I did. You know, as far as the manufacturing in the Village Commercial District or on-site sales, I think my main problem with the current article is that it's way too broad in scope. I would like to see it either be restrictive or permissive, but not both. So in other words, you can say, you know, non-noxious uses versus foundries. If the board wants to bring that up. We didn't really give it a lot of discussion at the meeting, like we did with the other two.
And I think if I understood what you were asking, Brian, in your email was, it was kind of an either define
I
what
guess you have to sign
noxious
it.
manufacturing
Yeah.
is.
Thank you.
Or
Right.
define permitted goods. I think it would be a lot easier just to define noxious manufacturing, like what we don't want.
Right.
Noxious use is a definition in our zoning ordinance.
Right. So that does echo that. I mean, if we can keep the language tight, it's going
But
to
I
be
think,
helpful.
I would think of anything that especially if we're talking about the downtown area, it's beyond, so noxious use is any use that would be harmful, injurious, I don't even know how to say that. Injurious, okay. Or unhealthy. I mean, is that too broad for something we would want to see in the village commercial district?
Yeah, I think you could go to be specific with odors, light, noise. I mean, those are primarily the noxious public uses of anything.
Yeah.
Frank could amplify on that, I'm sure. But those are the ones that are the most apparent.
Can we just update that definition as a way forward?
For
noxious
noxious uses? Yeah, but it still doesn't take care of the special exception requirement to get a bakery in town.
Right.
You know, these are uses that may have been, I mean, print shops of yore were stinky. And, you know, the only thing you know about the print shop here is when you go in the door and you can smell the ink. As far as the bakery, I have no idea why that was there, though I have suspicions. It doesn't belong. I don't know of a soul who doesn't like the aroma of a bakery.
Well, some people don't like the smell of the roasting coffee.
I was
Well,
just
there's
going to say
that.
that.
And that can be
Yeah.
sharp, you know, you're absolutely right. You know,
It's not
that's,
unhealthy.
correct.
It's just unappealing to some.
right,
How do
and
you qualify that?
Tough to
Well-
regulate that.
he's not selling it there, so it doesn't really fit on that.
So what we're having, so we're looking at it's the zoning use, the manufacture of goods sold on premises, but it's not defined anywhere what that means.
Right, well,
Except
it does,
in the- in
except
that-
in
yeah.
the thing, right.
So what we need is a manufacture of goods sold on premises. We need a definition for that, and then we would like to make it permitted. I mean, if we're gonna permit it in the village commercial, does that mean, I mean, why wouldn't it be permitted in the?
I think it should be permitted in all commercial zones.
Yep.
I would agree.
But it just came to light from the downtown because, I mean, it's been on the books for quite a while before we even developed Tenny Mountain Highway.
Yep.
So, you know, that people were fine with it because those entities were already available in town.
Right.
But now they're gone. Well, one of them is. And why should we stop somebody from putting in a bakery? I mean, that's a reasonable and customary use of a walkable downtown.
Now, and I think I said this last time, when I'm having trouble wrapping my head around, are there goods that you could sell that you could make and sell on premises that you wouldn't want to see a certain type of something in the downtown area versus the highway commercial or agriculture? Is there, I mean, I can't think of anything, I mean, maybe roasting coffee, but is there anything that would be not ideal in the downtown area that you're making and selling right there that you would be okay with, say, on Tenny Mountain Highway?
And I think that's the way to approach this. What don't we want in downtown?
Right. Right, open
Or,
that,
yeah.
you know, I mean, it'd be,
Anywhere but the, industrial zone.
right, and there are certain things that are allowed in the A zone that aren't allowed downtown. You know, and they're, kind of weird, some of them, but, there goes along with what people want to see in the downtown. So I can't imagine any kind of manufacturing that doesn't involve food that would establish in a downtown anyway. I mean, an electronics repair shop is not manufacturing.
Question whether a print shop is actually I mean, depends on what they're making. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think the board was talking about the transformative process. And that's understandable, but if you talk to a chef, they're going to read you the Riot Act because it's all about chemistry. So that's transformative as in its own. But this would be more, and it came to light with the brewing situation. Okay, so, it's reasonable, it's customary, everybody sells it in a restaurant, if they buy Budweiser, for example. There's no restrictions on that sale other than what the State Liquor Commission does. So what essentially is the difference between a site-crafted brew and one that comes from Golden, Colorado? As far as how it's presented in the downtown area, you wouldn't know because you would be at a restaurant with a brewery downstairs. It's not happening right in front of you. So, there's not even, personally I feel alcohol is noxious, but that's me. And I'm not going to restrict anybody from that. That's my own personal decision. But, somebody may be offended by things like that. And, if you go down that road, somebody's going to be offended about anything you do. So if you restrict it to its spreading beyond the footprint of the business, that would be a good start.
Can I ask then, so right now, there's a law on the books that says you can't manufacture a good to be sold on premises, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and
there's not a law that says you can't do it. It says that you can't do it in the single family, multifamily, or the civic institutional, but you need a special exception to do it in any of the other zones.
And that's what we're talking about here?
yes. So I would make it a permitted use in all commercial zones. But there again, it would have to fit within a framework that the board decides. Kind of like the home occupation. There's criteria that have to be met.
Can't we use the site plan review process?
Well, that's the other thing, because they will, if there's a change of use, it's going to come before you guys anyway. Whereas maybe they didn't take that as seriously in the past.
Whereas if we don't have manufacturing in these zones now, especially in the village commercial, it's gonna be a change of use, so.
Yes,
It would
exactly.
trigger site plan. I just worry about us trying to figure out all the possibilities.
Right.
I don't think
Whereas we already have, right. And then we'll,
Or
Miss
or
one.
at the very least, strike the non-noxious uses from the list. That might be
So-
the easiest way to go.
Right now, a bakery could move into downtown.
But they would have to get a special exception according to the zoning ordinance in order to bake and sell on the same place.
See, that doesn't make sense.
It makes
Right.
no
No.
sense.
Makes no sense
that's what we
whatsoever.
want to change.
What about all the
I think,
pizza
yeah.
houses?
Yeah.
That, again, it's, any restaurant is a manufacturing of a product, but since we don't have a definition of what that actually is, as
We'd
Rebecca
like to
was saying.
sell cans of beer, which is similar to what you get in the grocery store. So that is I think that's what the difference is they're selling something as a packaged product. I think that it's not just that they're going to be.
But the only difference between them and the grocery store is that they're actually manufacturing it on site.
Right.
What page what are you looking at there?
Page 15. It's the table of uses. I guess my concern is, and maybe it's the manufacture of consumables, like things you eat and drink, is different than other. I'm just worried about what we're not thinking about. That if we make it a permitted use, what are we not thinking about that is definitely something that is a manufacture of goods sold on premises that we wouldn't want in the downtown? So in my mind, the special exception is not a terrible thing because it
Right.
forces.
Perhaps it should be that if it's determined at site plan review for change of use that this is a questionable type of manufacturing, then it should be brought to the ZBA. But we're getting two bites at the
Yeah.
apple here, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, it should just, we should define what noxious uses are and include those there instead of what's not permitted, you know, because, you know what I'm saying? We're trying to make sense of this, which has existed from the 60s or 70s, and it's a poser. Because you're right, you don't want to go down the road where, you know, suddenly there's a new type of manufacture, and we're wide open, and it could be stinky and flashy and loud. But
we have site plan.
But we have site plan review, exactly.
Tannery, for
And
example.
if the board determines that, you know, it crosses that line, at that point, I don't know. I would like to open it up, but you can't really without.
It's like our zoning ordinance just opens up so many philosophical questions.
It does.
It's really confusing.
Well, I hate to see us create a problem,
Yeah.
like make it more complex than the existing complex problem we have when it doesn't seem to be an issue.
I mean, it could be as simple as not to include food products or.
A soap maker.
So what
There you
if,
have it.
what if we strike I think regardless, we should strike the examples from the manufacture of goods sold on premises, because I think, first of all, I think one of them is like questionable whether it's even manufacturing.
Yeah, you're right, because then.
And then even, yeah, so, potentially saying not to include food service products, but then beer is maybe a little different. But then can we get a definition of the manufacture of goods sold on premises? And can we because in the definitions, we could say, you know, any non-noxious, with a definition of, you know, not to spill odors or not to, you know, be beyond the property boundary or odor, sound, light.
How do
those
other
things.
towns handle this? They must handle it, I mean,
If they even have it.
and it sounds almost like it seems like that's why we have an industrial zone for the type of things that,
Not necessarily. Like if you and I wanted to open a brewery tomorrow downtown, we'd have to go to the ZBA.
Yes. And here.
and is that because of the manufacturing aspect of it, or is it because it involves alcohol?
No, it's
Manufacturing.
manufacturing.
If you wanted to go with, sell wreaths downtown that you make, you know,
Right.
you make wreaths and sell them, you would need the special exception.
You want to have an envelope store and make and sell envelopes, handcrafted envelopes. You got to go to the ZBA.
Yes.
You guys are stealing my business idea.
I'm trying to find like the most ridiculous kind of simple.
Frank has a question.
Not a question, but I think I can help you out. The North American Industry Classification System is 350 manufacturing industries currently listed. And management and budget follows this. That's how they determine our economic development of the state, our county, and whatever. Part of the thing is, I'll start off with the definition of manufacture is something that's made by hand. So anything you virtually make by hand is manufactured. The other issue that I think would help us out, since we're searching for words and clarification, we have several elements that we have available. The the International Building Code system, fire codes, life safety codes, they all have a glossary in front of them, and they all have definitions of the very thing you're now talking about. Part of the permitting process an applicant goes through is they would determine whether or not the volume of the material that could be hazardous in a manufacturing environment that would cause catastrophic disaster to the structure, that would require specialized equipment to contain that, is a benchmark. So we're talking, there's things that are on the hazardous material listing is like food coloring, nail polish remover. There's quite a few things you have in your home that are hazardous material, but they're labeled ORMD, otherwise regulated materials, domestic. And it's all in the fact that you only have a very limited amount within your house. When you get into a manufacturing environment and you have materials that you use to manufacture a product, and you have a certain volume of that material, it reaches a point in which the fire department is already on their run card saying, okay, if we show up at this building, this contains this volume of material, and in a fire condition can turn out to be hazardous. It could explode if we put water on it. So this is the type of thing that obviously we would go through a site plan review and through the International Building Code system, which the town planners uses, and then the fire and life safety codes and other state codes that supervise this and regulate it. I think through this process of trying to make a determination, and whatever we make as a determination, if our language in our ordinance meets the same glossary words in the building codes, fire codes, and life safety codes, there's a continuity of that reference. So if somebody challenges the decision, they can show, well, these are the code standards applied to everything in that type of industry, and hence doesn't have the appearance of being something that some individual or board has just picked out without having any technical background to it. So those code systems would help you with those glossary and help you, I think, formulate a very good change to an ordinance. But part of the site plan review process is to allow other agencies who have the technical expertise to review any application, so that obviously we don't have any unintended consequences because nobody even thought of it. But I think those systems would help you bring together a properly worded, updated ordinance. Thank you.
And just to amplify on what Frank said, the key here is sold on premises. I mean, Frank is speaking essentially globally at manufacturing, but this is a very unique and constrained thing. I think that there's also, industrial uses are already outlawed in the village commercial. They're pushed out towards the ICD in the A zones. And again, we have very limited square footage in the downtown area. Personally, I can't think of a manufactory that could house itself in a small building in the downtown in the first place. So that pretty much limits it to vending to the consumer on site. So we're already kind of narrowing down the types of uses that are allowed anyway. This just seems like an unnecessary stumbling block to benign uses. And if we can get those off, I mean, that's essentially what I'm looking for, to try and, it feeds back to the master plan and getting the downtown usable and walkable and attractive. And, if you're able to, pick up things that are, handcrafted, then, fine. I mean, because you look at it too, and if you stretched it enough, you could say a jeweler needed to get a special exception.
This is where I think we get into trouble. Why can't we just say it's a commercial use? Why can't we get rid of the use? If you're making something and selling it, it's a commercial use. And I think we have too many uses in our
Yes,
zoning
yes.
anyway. And I know we can't solve that problem tonight, but
I think that sounds great. That
so
takes,
if,
yeah,
if that wasn't there as a use and I come in with Chris's envelope store idea,
yeah.
he's commercial.
Um,
And then site plan.
Other thing is, I'm trying to find where do I see where industrial uses are not permitted?
Just by, you have to parse it through on the list of uses there.
So I see industry in there as a special exception in the village commercial.
Okay, which is understandable, because they didn't want to totally outlaw it.
Yeah, so is junkyard.
Yes.
Great
Again,
use.
Yeah.
special exception use when
Yeah.
it's clearly a variance use in almost every location.
Yep.
But there again, that's by zone, and if we're looking, maybe this manufacture of goods sold on premises shouldn't apply in the village commercial. And maybe as simple as that, provided that it doesn't blah, blah, blah. Then you add the chance after that. You can do this if nothing's apparent from outside of the building. The things that we normally apply to zoning special exceptions and variances. Basically, it's criteria.
So I just want to entertain the idea of just striking this as a altogether. As a I just want to make sure we're not making it more confusing for ourselves later on, so that if someone does, so we get, the best example we have is the brewery coming in wanting to brew beer. Bar, tavern, they don't want to be a bar, tavern, nightclub, I know that. Is it a restaurant? what?
Yeah, how would
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
you deal with an applicant,
If
I
there's-
guess?
Oh, okay. Very much like I did with the 1766. Okay, you want to do this, it's a change of use, you got to go to site plan review. Oh, by the way, you also need a special exception to
But what
brew
if we
down.
got rid of that,
The manufacturer of
that
goods.
use?
Because I think it's really confusing and muddy.
Would it just be a restaurant that also produces their own beer?
Pretty much,
So it'd make one less stop for them.
yes. And as long as we provide oversight, at this board, I think that's the key to this. I don't believe that you would allow a noxious use.
Right.
Nor would any planning board, not just this group here.
Unless they could mitigate it. Unless they could be
Exactly,
forced to
in
mitigate it.
which case-
Right.
It's site plan review.
Right.
It's, okay, yeah, you can do it, but you got to do this. And that's easy enough. If it was the ink smell from a printer, for example, you could compel them to put in charcoal filters. So they could exhaust directly to the street and you wouldn't smell it. Things of that nature. I guess my biggest problem with this is its application to food. Because it's accepted in everything else, everywhere, daily life, except for the town of Plymouth, And I think it's good because we're starting to see more small manufactories producing things, not necessarily hard goods, but transformative things like the bakeries or the breweries or things like that. So, we want to encourage them because they're usually locally based.
So I think that there's sort of two options on the table, is to just strike this altogether. Or put something in there that says not to include any food or drink, something like that.
Not to include any.
So,
By striking the examples provided in the list would do it then.
yeah, so, yeah.
Either.
And then also provide a definition, which is lacking.
So if we don't strike it, then we have to make up a definition. Now, don't let that sway which one you choose, because you don't want to pick a definition.
I'm completely confused. It's like, I don't understand.
So I think it
How
helps
bad
if
could a
you,
bakery be?
well, no, that's what we're
It's
saying.
not the
That's what we're
bakery.
saying, yeah.
Right, I
So
think
what do
it's,
we do to make that okay? I mean,
Those two things, we can either strike this from the table of uses, so we just don't even have a manufacturer of goods sold on,
I mean, you
On
could put in not required in food related, because you're doing it and you're selling it there.
but
I think it gets more confusing the more layers we
Yeah,
add.
so
so
I think
just-
that, yeah, I would say just get rid of it.
Okay,
I move we get rid of it.
I'm with Jack.
yeah, I
I
think
think so
so.
too. I think
Okay.
it's really hard to define
Right, and this was the
noxious.
problem that I had with it
Right.
too. Yeah, if one man's meat's another man's poison, you know, how
Right.
smells
Exactly.
work, so.
Okay.
I think the only thing we're in agreement on is that this coffee smell is a little intense.
I like it.
I like it.
I love coffee. And it always smells like the coffee's been on
Each his
the
own.
burner for too long.
I'm not into
You
it
know.
myself, and I really like, I mean, I drink the coffee. but-
It doesn't smell like coffee.
No, it doesn't. The
It
first
smells
time I
like
lived in a
something
city
else.
that had that, I couldn't figure out what it was.
I've never
It took me a
smelled it.
long time to figure it out.
Down in Houston, down from our office, Maxwell House said,
That's a whole different story.
That's a noxious. That's a
That's
noxious.
noxious.
It smells a little more burning.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, I've
It's
never,
actually been roasting, so.
oh.
It's probably the dark roast.
Are we
but-
gonna talk about the others?
Yes. I mean, if you,
Can I bring something up?
yeah, so I just want to make sure, John, you're good with us, just, Chris? Okay.
I'd like to say, for some reason, is that zoning ordinance? What are you looking at there?
Yes.
And so my pages don't line up. You might have it, because I went to 15.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do, and I don't want to do this until after we make these changes, we need to get, everyone needs it, because I've got like new pages to be inserted in
Right.
here and stuff.
We always print a fresh one with any amendment.
Yeah,
So as soon as that's published, if it is,
yeah.
you can light fires with these.
So if we had that in front of us, I think all the confusion that
So it's the
we're
table of
having now
uses, so, which you can get to from the table of contents, whichever one you have. It's gonna be
It's
in,
like section 304.
Can't even-
it's exactly, yeah.
Frustrated for me.
Section 304. Yeah. All right, so,
You don't have it memorized, Chris?
all right.
All right, so.
There you are.
Yeah. Mine's page 17. And what we're saying is strike, including bakery, print shop, publishing, just.
Strike the
get
whole
rid of-
thing.
Strike the whole thing, recognizing that it would require site plan review no matter what they proposed.
Right.
And even the current one, using the brewery as an example, if you want to expand, site plan review.
Right. And they've already gone to the ZBA?
Yes. Yes, they did. Actually, that was at the last meeting.
Is that one okay?
Yeah, everybody got it. We're looking forward to it. You know, it was one of those things, he was caught between 3 or 4 different conflicting laws, the feds versus the state versus the zoning ordinance, and just trying to find a way through it, and it opened up for him.
Okay, so are we good to talk about the other two that Brian outlined on this? Is that what you're ready for?
Yeah, my only comment was about the commercial co-location, and I wish I'd thought of this when Brian brought it to us last month, but I'm questioning why we want to spell out that it could be 2 commercial structures. I don't have a preference that we have a number. And
Okay.
here's my reason. So, right now, we're saying on one parcel that somebody can have, instead of 1 commercial structure, they can have 2. Well, what if because of the configuration or size of the parcel, they want 3? Do we really care? Because the way you framed it, I think, is really good, because it says, regardless of the number, if you're gonna have commercial structures on a single building pad, on a single parcel, they're permitted, provided that they meet all of our other requirements.
Okay.
So
No,
setbacks, site plan, all that stuff. So I would, and I did a track changes in case people went along with it to make life easier for you. But I would strike the 2 and make a change there. And then instead of saying both, say all. But I wanted to bring it up because if somebody could think of a reason why we should limit it to 2, but it just felt,
I mean, it's like a strip mall or one lot with multiple buildings on it. It's really
yeah.
the same thing, essentially.
Right. So Chris's envelope business takes off. He buys land on Tenny Mountain Highway. He wants to put up a couple other buildings and rent them out.
Quite the entrepreneur over there.
He's
I'll
not,
be
listen-
working
he's
for
not
him
listening
one
to
day.
me, so.
Yeah.
I'm retired.
The,
Not opening anything.
the envelope king of Plymouth.
Right.
But then that would mean, I guess the last piece, more than two structures on a parcel will remain a special exception use. That would have to
Yeah,
go away.
that's easy enough to strike. I mean, this was just kind of going along with my original thought and the input that I got from you guys.
Yeah. I just wasn't thinking of it when you first brought it
Yeah,
up.
you're absolutely right.
And the residential setback thing, I think is great, and I think that image is awesome. 'cause It's
Thank you,
really
that's
clear.
mine.
I had a few.
You should make sure you put your little.
Yeah, 'cause that's gonna get
Your
used.
name in small letters is what I meant.
It'll be on plan link.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, now here's something that occurred to me as second thought
Okay.
last night was, what if the plane of the building is not parallel to the road? Do you go to the closest approach? Or, because it could matter if you're planning a real long addition, and you're cocked a little bit that way. It's going to render your setback even closer.
Make it really exciting and say the mean between the.
Well, then it gets into like grade, like our 35-foot height limit, it's the average
I think
grade
it's the
between the
closest.
two.
What you said, the closest.
The closest, so the side that it's being
Yeah,
added
so
onto.
that would just add another line, that if the line is oblique, then the closest approach, or do we want the closest approach? I mean,
I would think the closest corner of the building we want.
that would hold the line. So
Hold the
it
line,
would
right.
require them to perhaps bend the structure a little bit, or, continue the plane
Or
in,
continue the plane, right?
right.
Unless that's gonna keep them, as long as we're clear that it's like no further than that, where that point is.
Because they won't get, if they continue, they won't get any closer to the road. They'll
Yeah.
have a weird building that
Unless
would
it's
be
like,
expensive to build.
unless they're in the side that's closer to the road, if they're building onto that side and the building's at an angle, and if they build flat, it's gonna continue to get encroached. So if we're just saying as long as it's the point, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would be clear. It was not in this, with the spirit of this.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right. I just wanna make sure it is clear that the spirit is clear.
Yeah, and,
I agree.
Clearly.
I couldn't think of any buildings that were sided that way, that were really obvious.
These are the things that keep you awake.
Exactly, they do.
You don't sleep well, huh?
I do, and then I wake up way too early. And I can't blame it on the cat anymore.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'll work on, did you have some language for that, Steve? Oh, excellent.
There are minor changes, but in case.
No, okay. No, I was thinking more on the setback line. It's going to take a
No.
little bit more.
Yeah, I couldn't help you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And then I just want to make sure, I'm, zoning ordinance, it's confusing for everybody, as, but just making sure we change it in all the right spots. So if it's any of these things are mentioned in multiple spaces, that it's,
Changed.
yeah. And I think some of them, like the, this is section 401. I was looking at this. I think they're just going to be another like 401.11.
Yes. I mean, that's the obvious place for it. And there's enough language about setbacks in that it fits in
Yeah.
perfectly.
And so what we'll do is we'll just, so when we present this, it'll be amendment to the zoning ordinance to be included in section 401.11. And then for the manufacture of goods sold on service, that we're getting rid of, we'll just say removing this from the
Right.
table of uses. So, okay.
That's the easy one.
Yeah, yes. All right. I can take a look at this residential setbacks language if you want.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I'll be able to help, but I can try. But I think putting this in here,
Yeah, definitely, it's worth 1,000 words.
yep. We can even call this the Brian Murphy Amendment.
We're going to have to put roads on there, too, so.
Yeah.
We've already used Thunder and Easy Street.
Yeah.
Those are worth using again.
Yep.
The Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
That way we can always blame it on Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian created it.
Thank you, Mr. Select.
We do that anyway, don't we?
Well, yeah, but not publicly. We just set out the rumor.
Yeah. All right, so I'll take a look at the language a little more carefully, and then, our public hearing is the first, for the zoning ordinance is the first one in January, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
So do we need to get the language, I'll try and turn this around to you in a couple of days,
Okay.
because we'll need to get it to the town attorney, because he'll review the language.
Right. Just to make sure that it's put in the proper amendment language.
Yeah,
for
to
the-
make it
for the
slightly
ballot.
less clear, I'm sure, but yeah, you know. And then, great, and then we send it, the select board will give hopefully their thumbs up on these, when it goes, because before it goes, it'll say, this is, do they? Or is that
No,
just?
that's normally for citizens petitions.
Oh, okay.
This will say that the planning board recommends.
Okay, great,
If you do.
okay. I hope we do.
I would hope so by now.
I'd rather not work on something we're not gonna support.
Right.
Oh, we have a motion on the table.
And a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor of
Aye.
signing this?
Okay, thank you for that.
I can't remember what it
Madam
was, but
Yeah.
And as far as the new business preview, you have your packages for the 20th, and that's
Great, thank
basically,
you.
there are 2 cases on there. You're aware of what they are. It's the virtual reality arcade and the addition to the Bridge House, which is essentially a representation of their original application.
They're manufacturing the yogurt? The yogurt cart?
Oh, God, I hope
Now they're
not.
brewing beer.
Just checking.
Brian, are we gonna get any like this, or we're just
Yes, you
gonna-
will. Actually, is that last year's?
Yes, it is.
Okay, Dawn and I were just working on it today.
Yeah, 'cause,
So
this is easier
it'll all
to,
come out, a whole raft of stuff. First of the year.
Nice bright colors.
I need a lot of guidance.
All right, anything else from the board? All right,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay.
Amen.